University, we have a special 30-minute shortened episode of the Director's Cut. Nick Rohloff and Tyler Smith. Because we would be at Radio Row right now, but we'll have to settle for the beautiful Olean snowy campus in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, it was pretty rough since we got we had the ability and the chance to go down there, but obviously with COVID precautions and the state of the society we're in right now, wasn't possible. But we're making the most of it. Remote Radio Row, we're going strong. Going to be live pretty much every day this week. So we're glad to be here and just kicking off another one of these live streams that I'm ready to have for every show.
Yeah, Tyler, you sat down with CBS play-by-play Andrew Catalon. That will be coming up in a little 20 minutes, most likely. So stay tuned for that interview. It was a great interview. I watched it. I wasn't able to be a part of it, unfortunately, but Tyler did a great job on that. You guys will hear that soon. But before that, we said on our main show yesterday that we're going to have a little aspect of the game, little talking points, every day leading up till Friday, and then we'll have our main predictions and score before the big weekend. But we're going to start with what I think is going to be important is the weather, because I looked to see what the weather was going to be like. I was hoping we were going to see clear skies, clear day to see these two offenses air it out, but that's not the case. If the weather radar is correct, it said there's a 45% chance of rain at the beginning of the game, 60% throughout the day, and 14-mile-per-hour winds. Tyler, it's going to affect the game dramatically.
Absolutely. Now, we can never get a perfect Super Bowl, right? The one time we have an epic quarterback matchup, there's got to be an outside element coming into play to distract them just a little bit. But 14-mile-an-hour winds and torrential downpour would not be a good look for both quarterbacks, obviously, but more importantly, Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, Brady has played more seasons. He's played more rain games than Mahomes, and that's just going to benefit him. Obviously, being down in Tampa Bay, he's got the home field. We mentioned that it didn't make as much of a difference this season as it would normally, but when you're playing in adverse conditions and you do have that home stadium that you're riding on, it's got to provide a tad bit of advantage there, but if there is what these people say is going to be rain during the Super Bowl, the offenses could fuddle just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I got to ask you, what do you think team benefits more if it is raining?
Well, I would say it would benefit the Bucs more because of their stout running game. Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones have been pretty good. Obviously, Leonard Fournette has come on in the second half of the season into the playoffs, but Ronald Jones has been that guy who they've been going to on first, second, third downs for the majority of the season. Having those two in the backfield healthy, able to play this weekend is going to be a huge plus for them if this weather does come into play, because Tampa Bay has been effectively running the ball all year, and if that's what they need to go to, and the Chiefs don't have the greatest run defense of all time, that's just going to be the reality of it for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, when you look at the statistics, the Chiefs rank in the bottom, I think, 10, 12 in run defense throughout the regular season, giving up 122 a game. And the Bucs, their regular season, they didn't run it a lot. They aired with Brady. They only averaged about 96 yards per game on the ground. But these three postseason games, they're averaging 115, and it almost happens every year, no matter what the team is. And you saw Danny Amendola say yesterday that the Patriot way is Tom Brady. But these Tom Brady-led playoff teams, he can throw it all the time. Their running game could be awful, but going into that postseason, they established a run. Going back in my most recent memory as a Patriots fan, 2018, if you would have told me Sony Michel was going to run for 330 yards and 6 touchdowns in the 3 playoff games in that Super Bowl run, I would have told you you're nuts, because he looked like he had talent, but the run wasn't there for Patriots. And just with Tom Brady, I think it instills him with confidence to be able to run the football, and you see the Bucs doing it. So when it comes to that rain, you mentioned the Tampa Bay Bucs stout run defense. They are going to benefit so much if it is rainy. Obviously, Mahomes is going to still be able to throw the ball around. There's no doubting that. But if it hinders the play calling, it hinders the deep ball, that's going to severely benefit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, so if the what would have to happen for the Chiefs to really take this to their advantage is, get out early and make Tom Brady have to throw the ball for the vast majority of the game in that poor weather, that would definitely, put the Chiefs in a position to win the football game. I found, a collection of stats. It's a little archived, it was from 6 years ago, but it's based on Tom Brady's playing in precipitation. And in 15 games from 6 years ago, so that'd be 2015, in those 15 games, he's thrown 22 touchdowns. So that's about a touchdown and a half per game. And he's had a QBR of 92. So it doesn't seem like precipitation affects him too much. But in those years when he was in New England in his prime, they were a running football team. And Brady wouldn't he wouldn't be throwing the ball 40 times a game like he might be this weekend.
And think about when you look at those Patriots teams, who are their main top receivers? Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman. It's a common theme there, small slot receivers. So he only threw the ball 5-10 yards downfield. That's why people always made fun of him for doing checkdowns. But what could he do with those wide receivers? This time he's got, I am assuming Antonio Brown will play. I'm pretty sure that's a guarantee, even though he missed the NFC Championship game. You got a deep threat, Mike Evans, Godwin, who can play the slot, but also runs deep routes over the middle. And you got Antonio Brown, who can do a mixture of both. This team throws the ball more downfield than what Brady's more accustomed to with those Patriots teams. So you might see in the Super Bowl, if it's rainy and tough conditions, you might see Tom Brady and his Bucs team go to a Patriots-style game where they run the ball 25, 30 times and set up play action, screens, 5-10 yards, and slowly, methodically move on the field, rather than deep shots, what Bruce Arians likes to do and what they've done all year.
Well, in these 3 playoff games, the Bucs have run the ball almost 30 times in each of the 3 games. So they're not going to be shying away from the run game in this game, especially if there's rainfall. So if they just stick to their game plan and find a way to establish the run against, like you said, a poor Chiefs run defense, then it's going to be Brady's game to lose.
Yeah, and the Chiefs' defense is good at stopping their run, but the Bucs, I just want to throw a quick stat. They led the league in run allowed by 10 yards a game. The Buccaneers only allowed 80 yards a game on the ground. The next best was the Colts at 90. That's actually insane to me, that only 80 yards rushing a game. Counterpoint to that, though, their run defense is very good, but the Bucs scored so many points, other teams had to throw the ball. And think about this, Vita Vea, their best defensive interior lineman and best run stopper, obviously JPB, Devin White, Levante David, and Shaq Barrett can get after the quarterback and defend over the middle. But Vita Vea is the main guy to stop the run. He didn't play. He came back in the NFC Championship game, was still hindered, but then he now had 2 weeks off. Vita Vea could play a pivotal role in this game if there's bad conditions, especially with the Chiefs' offensive line being banged up. I
mean, talk about a guy who's just gotten better every year in the league, Vita Vea. He's just become a man in the middle in the interior defensive line, just plugging, the 1 and 2 holes that he needs to be able to stop inside runs. And it just doesn't seem like with the front 7 that Tampa Bay does have, that we'll be seeing a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the ground. We'll be seeing a lot of Le'Veon Bell on the ground. It just doesn't look like we're going to be able to see that in this game. I expect Patrick Mahomes to actually throw probably upwards of 45 times.
I can see that, especially because we expect this game to be a shootout. And do you think, if we've talked about the weather affecting who gets the edge, but do you think this game becomes lower scoring if the weather is poor?
That's something that you would obviously think. That it's just common sense. Raining, slippery, you score less points. It really, it doesn't really matter in a lot of instances. You can have a totally dry game and it ends up being 10-3, like we saw Texans-Browns earlier this year, and then you could have a rain game or a snow game where there's 6 touchdowns thrown by Tom Brady. It's happened before, and I'm not counting out anything, especially in a Super Bowl between 2 quarterbacks who are, like we mentioned yesterday, right up there in the GOAT debate.
And when it's interesting because they always say that rain and snow isn't even that bad. It's the wind. Mm-hmm. And that affects throwing the football because you have to account for the wind to move either way. And yeah, we've said that this weather could benefit the Bucs because of it might become more heavy run than pass. I wouldn't say heavy run, but there would be more running involved than there usually would in a perfect condition. But one thing to look at, the Bucks struggle with drops.
They do.
Evans struggles, Godwin struggles. I would say the tight ends and Antonio Brown are pretty solid, but Godwin and Evans do struggle with drops at times.
OJ Howard can drop it a few times too as well.
Well, he's been injured.
Oh, yeah, he has. You're right.
But if you count Mike Evans and Godwin dropping balls, that could be big because we saw in that Chiefs or the Packers game a week and a half back, Evans, it was a little too high, but he's got to come down with that ball that led to the pick at the 5-yard line. I mean, it became a game, and we talked about the coaching decisions, but it wouldn't even been a close game at the end if Evans was able to hang on to that. And Godwin's been struggling with drops too, but he does, I think, still got that splint in his finger.
Okay.
He suffered that injury, I think week 10 around that time, but still got to catch the ball.
Of course. I mean, when you're out there on the field, that means you're, whether you're 100% or not, if you're playing on the field, coaches, players, you're 100% to go. And if you can't perform at your highest level, then, Bruce Arians is going to find somebody who can. So we saw, Scotty Miller get his first real playoff reps last week in the NFC Championship game, and he caught a crucial touchdown at the end of the first half. So if these Bucs players are dropping the ball and, the rain really comes into effect on the receiving side, you're going to have to find other players to just do the job. You have to be able to quick in a game like that. It's one game. It's an hour long, and there isn't much time for, screw-ups and, time to fix those.
Yeah, and let's move on to another aspect of this game. And it would have been great to see Rob Gronkowski in his prime, but this is a great tight end battle between Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski. It's widely known Rob Gronkowski is the top 3 tight end of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Either way you want to put it, probably Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, and Rob Gronkowski. Those are probably your top 3. Now Travis Kelce, with the way he's been putting up crazy numbers these past 3-4 years with Mahomes and even just a year with Alex Smith, he's getting into that discussion of one of the most dominant pass catching tight ends. And it begs the question, if you're taking the top 4 years, so these past 4 years of Kelce, the top 4 years of Gronk, which tight end would you rather have?
Okay, so it really depends on the system. I would say that obviously in this Chiefs system, you take Kelce. Now, and Gronk wouldn't be a bad replacement for him. It's just the way that Kelce can affect the game as far as being a receiver. He's just an extra body out there. He's basically an extra receiver out there with more meat on his bones and a bigger frame. So it's just a bigger target for Patrick Mahomes to hit in the open field. And when he gets out there, he's a tough man to stop. Yeah,
but see, this is where it differs. And we had the same exact debate last year, maybe not you and I, but mostly for the media of who the best tight end in football was. Was it Kittle when that crazy year with the 49ers or Kelce with the Chiefs? And this is where this big aspect comes to me because tight ends are great. They're awesome when they're big threats down the field and weapons in the passing game. But one of the big things for the tight ends to do is they have to be able to run block. And Rob Gronkowski, in my mind, is the greatest run blocking tight end of all time. I mean, he is not afraid to get physical, to get into it. And honestly, George Kittle, just bringing him up, he might come into that discussion of greatest.
Absolutely. I think he will be there one day.
Because those two are the full package tight end. They can catch, they can run block. And with Kelce, he's a dominant pass catcher. But, I mean, the Chiefs don't run the ball, but I don't think he's a good run blocker even if they did run.
And obviously, you're never really going to know because then they're never going to use him in those type of situations. They do have other tight ends on the roster that they do put in, run heavy and blocking formations. So Kelce isn't in on all those downs. But it is interesting to note that Gronk was giving Kelce a little praise this weekend. He mentioned that, Kelce is the best player on this Chiefs offense over Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. So that's a lot of praise from a guy who, has been in the league for so long. He's seen all these offensive players, especially tight ends. Obviously, he plays the position. So that's a lot of praise going to a guy who has just come on the scene these last couple of years, and he's already vaulted himself into the probably top 10, top 5 tight ends of all time.
Kelce?
Yeah.
It's close. Let's look at the numbers because the numbers are interesting. Gronk in his 10 years in the league has 86 career touchdowns, which is was on pace to shatter records for a tight end, and he's had 8,000, basically 500 yards. While Kelsey in his, I think it's 7-8 games or 7-8 seasons, has 7,800 yards, but only 48 touchdowns. So he gets more yards than Rob Gronkowski did, but the touchdown disparity is very, very large.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, Kelsey's played with a lot of weapons lately, but just think about this. His season this year is unbelievable. In the regular season, he had 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns with a whopping 105 receptions. That's a great season. But would you rather have that season or Gronk's best season? 90 catches, 13,000 yards, or 1,300 yards and 17 touchdowns, which led the league that year.
That's a tough question.
Because that was Gronk's second year, and in 2011, he was an absolute monster. I mean, absolutely no one could guard him. Safeties, corners, linebackers. Because in Gronk's prime, he was faster than linebackers and too big for safeties and corners.
Oh, yeah, except for Cam Chancellor. Let's just add that in there. But, no, Gronk, obviously, when you look at it all-time standpoint, he's obviously higher up on the list than Kelsey. But there's no argument about who's the better player now. So when we're looking at this game straight up, who's going to affect the game more? It's going to be Travis Kelce. And if the debate is, take Kelsey's best 5 years over Gronk's best 5 years, Gronk had 3 Super Bowls in his, albeit he did have Brady, Belichick, and the rosters that they had in New England. But Kelce, he's only just gotten a quarterback that would throw the ball to him for the first time in his career in Mahomes a couple of years ago. So he's just kind of come on the scene. Obviously, he did get targeted a good amount by Alex Smith in his last year in Kansas City. So he had a little tune-up before Mahomes came to town. But there's no argument now. Kelsey's going to affect this game in a huge way, and I could see him having triple-digit yards. Yeah,
he probably will, because unless would be very shocking if he didn't. But when you look at Kelsey's numbers from his career, he, even without Mahomes, received a lot of targets. I mean, he didn't play his rookie year at all. But every year after that, he's received 87 targets or more. And and that was the only year in 2014 that he didn't eclipse 100 targets on the season. But the only thing is, when you talk about who's more dominant, right, like with Gronk's prime or Kelsey right now, is the touchdown, because Kelsey's had 2 years over 10 touchdowns. Gronk's had 5.
And let's not forget, I mean, Kelsey and Gronk came into the league largely in the same time frame. Kelsey was a rookie in 2013. Gronk was a rookie in 2010. But Gronk's only 6 months older than Travis Kelce, if you didn't know.
Yeah, Kelsey's an old guy, and that's one thing that you feel like you've only had Mahomes and Kelsey for 3 years, which is true, and you only might get it for 3 more years.
Yeah, and I mean, Kelsey at the beginning of his career, the numbers weren't exactly there. If you look at him, his rookie season, he didn't even play. He had 1 game and he didn't even get a target. So the next year, obviously, he went up to 862. Next year, 875, and then he had his string of 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So Travis Kelce is a guy who's really burst onto the scene and asserted himself as the best tight end in football. And when there was a debate between him and George Kittle, like you said, Travis Kelce definitely felt slighted by that. Had to come out this season and just re-break all the records that George Kittle broke of his.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see Kittle in a full season next year. Maybe he has a new quarterback, maybe not, but either way.
Better not be Deshaun Watson.
Oh, God.
Better not be.
But if they somehow trade for Deshaun Watson, I said yesterday that the Rams, in my opinion, the NFC frontrunners.
It would probably be the Niners at that point.
The Niners would be Super Bowl favorites.
Yeah,
they would be better than the Chiefs.
I agree.
Because with that defense, their defense is way better than the Chiefs.
Well, Sherman's probably out of there.
But realistically, Sherman's old.
Yeah.
Is it that much of a loss?
Doesn't even cover one-on-one receivers. He's his own guy, so.
Yeah. Yes. So you get a top 5 quarterback with Kyle Shanahan, and then that defense, they would 100% be my Super Bowl pick for next year. And
the Niners always find a way to have one of their rookies have immense production in his rookie season. So whoever they end up drafting, they're in a good position this year. Whoever they do end up drafting will probably make an impact next year as well. But that's a little off topic.
Yeah, well, that will do it for our Super Bowl talk. we're gonna have the break. When we come back, you'll hear. Are we seeing it too?
Yeah, we will be seeing it. My sit down with Andrew Catalon, CBS Sports. It was a great interview. I had a lot of fun. So yeah, stick with us. We'll be back in just a little bit. It's a director's cut. 88.3, The Buzz. All right, now joining me on the Director's Cut is a familiar voice around NFL Sundays, as well as some of the biggest events in sports, CBS broadcaster Andrew Catalon. Andrew, just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of such a busy week. It's great to finally meet you and get you on the show.
Tyler, I appreciate you having me on. I'm really happy for all of your success and wish you more as you go forward.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to touch on the big game, obviously, but I'm going to save that for later in the interview. I want to touch on a more pressing issue right now. As you're a Newhouse School graduate from Syracuse University, what do you make of head coach Jim Boeheim's fear of traveling down to Olean and playing in the Raleigh Center?
Wow, I was not expecting that to be the first question. Yeah, well, even going back to when I was in school, which is now 20 years ago, I graduated. They didn't travel much in the non-conference, so a lot of home games against Colgate and St. Bonaventure and Buffalo and Cornell. So that's really nothing new at Syracuse.
Yeah, we had a very competitive game just 3 years ago with a team of Jalen Adams, Matt Mobley, Courtney Stockard. Then the next year, obviously, two of those three guys were out of here, and it was a much different result in the Carrier Dome. But the Bonnies this year are making a statement. 35th in the net rankings. We're getting some AP poll votes. Have you been paying attention at all to the A-10 this year? And what do you make?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's great because there's so many challenges, as you know, in this COVID season of college basketball. I think it takes a veteran team. I think it takes a well-coached team to handle everything. As one coach told me last week, you're not only stressed about your own team's COVID results, but you're stressed about the other teams to see if you will have that game. I just think there's so many layers to this year. So to go out there, not only be able to play games, but have success, it's a testament to the program, and I wish them all the best.
Absolutely. And this actually comes at a pretty perfect time as we're talking now. You're a broadcaster, and I actually just made my broadcasting debut yesterday on ESPN Plus as the Bonnies women hosted Dayton in a pretty good game up until like the late fourth quarter. It was pretty fun, and it's just exciting to be able to now connect with you when we're kind of doing the same thing, albeit you're on a very professional level.
That's fantastic. That's what I was referring to when I started the interview. I'm just really so happy for you. The most important thing as a young broadcaster, or really any field, but specifically in broadcasting, is just to get reps. The more games you call, even if they're not even on the air, you sit in the stands and announce a game just to get those reps and to develop your craft. It's so important, especially at the college level. So the more opportunities you have, you just keep saying yes. Never say no to these opportunities.
Absolutely. And I'm doing the same with never say no mentality with interviews this week. I'm taking everybody who answers the call,
Well, I'm happy to be here.
But yeah, absolutely. You're one of the big name guys that we were able to secure this week, and we couldn't be happier to have you. Now, your main broadcasting duties obviously include the NFL, college hoops, and golf for CBS. Those three entities, in my opinion, hold the three most important sporting events in the U.S., March Madness, the Masters, and, well, pretty much NFL Sunday on any given week. Which of those three do you get most excited for when they pop up on your calendar?
Wow. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to call all three of them. I love the sports that I announced. It's something I always watched: football, basketball, and golf growing up. So it's just a natural fit for me. Look, to be in an NFL booth every Sunday is something I never take for granted. Not that I take any of them for granted, but I really love the NFL each and every week. But the Masters is by far my most enjoyable week of the year. It's just so great in a non-COVID year, not only to see all my colleagues, but to be in Augusta. It's just a fantastic spot. And, the excitement of March Madness is something that, I remember as a high school kid sneaking off and trying to catch a glimpse of those Thursday noon games. I think it's just a part of all of our childhoods, but now it extends into being an adult. And there's something special about all three of them, really, Tyler. I feel very lucky to be able to do it.
Obviously, NFL Sunday, the pinnacle of the week in sports, the Masters, so many legends around, and March Madness is probably the most hectic first and second weekend, that you can find around any sporting event. It's just very cool that you get to be able to do that. Now, are there different levels of nervousness? I know you're an 11-year veteran, but for each of the three sports, is there a different, kind of like more pressure in certain events?
I would say that I don't really feel nerves. I feel adrenaline for sure. I mean, especially at a crazy March Madness game or coming down the stretch of an NFL game or Sunday at Augusta. I mean, you feel that energy, that adrenaline. I think if you don't feel it, it's, something's wrong. I mean, you should be getting up and getting fired up for these events that you're at. I absolutely fought through nerves earlier in my career, but I just feel like as you get, as I said before, more reps and you get to feel more comfortable. I always like to think of it as, me and you are hanging out watching a game. That's how I kind of approach announcing. Like, I want you to sit on your couch and be like, you know what? I like listening to this guy. I could see myself having a meal with him or something. So, I think that if you approach it that way, it kind of settles the nerves, because I don't think you'd be nervous watching a game with me on your couch. So why would you be nervous in that scenario? So I think that helps, but certainly early on, you think about all that stuff and you want to knock out every opportunity you get. And I still feel that way, but it's more in a positive way than a negative way.
Absolutely. Obviously, we're at, like you mentioned, far different ends of our careers. Yesterday, my heart was beating out of my chest, I have to admit.
That's very normal, Tyler. I mean, if you didn't feel that way, I'd say this isn't for you. I just think that over time, that'll go away. Yeah.
Actually, we went live. It seemed a little prematurely when the anthem was going on. They had an alumni singing it on the big screen, and the video actually went silent and off for like 15 seconds. And then I actually was, thinking like, oh, what's going on here? And then I actually blurted out, I pledge allegiance to the flag. And we actually happened to be on the air. And my roommate mentioned to me after the game, I was floored.
Yeah, and look, I think we all have stories of that, not only being nervous, but getting caught off guard. I had a teacher at Syracuse that said, you're nothing in this business till you make your first 1,000 mistakes. I mean, literally, every game that we announce, there's no perfect game. You know what I mean? I've never put the headset down and said, that was perfect. Not one thing I would change. You always want to get better. You always are looking for ways to improve. And, when you're on live TV for 2 or 3 hours, you're going to say stuff or make mistakes that, of course, you'd want to correct. And again, that's where the reps comes in and just keep it to hone your craft.
Well, thank you very much for that. While I reside actually in the Hudson Valley area of New York, now I've relocated to the paradise that is Western New York. A large portion of St. Bonaventure students, as well as the majority of my friends, are Buffalo natives. And interestingly enough, the university is actually the official academic sponsor of the Bills. You have a connection to the Bills as well, serving as the Bills' preseason voice for 5 years. What have your experiences been like in Buffalo? And what can you say about the city, people, and culture of what some call America's best kept secret?
I'm 100% on board with America's best kept secret. I love going to Buffalo, whether it's over the summer for the preseason games or if I'm lucky enough to call some games during the regular season there. Going to Syracuse, obviously having a taste of it. I would go to games when I was at SU and drive out to Buffalo to watch football games as a student. But then developing relationships with so many people in the Bills organization, specifically Steve Tasker, because not only do we announce preseason games together, but we were partners on the NFL on CBS for a number of years as well. So developed a really good friendship with him. We have so much fun when I go up there. I stay at his house when I go to Buffalo for the preseason games to visit, just because we're playing golf and hanging out. So I love going to Buffalo. It's a tremendous city, and I'm really so proud of that organization because Brandon Beane, the general manager, and Sean McDermott, the head coach, they have put a culture in place that I think that they're going to have success year in and year out. This was not a fluke that they made it to the AFC Championship game. They are built for long-standing success, and I'm excited to watch it.
Absolutely. I kind of mentioned it wasn't, when they lost to the Chiefs, I kind of was like, this wasn't really a feel-good story. And like you said, it's not a fluke there in the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen's progression this year was something that was masterful. I didn't anticipate the way that he would vault himself into top 5 quarterback position this year, but it was amazing for, my friends, to finally get a positive season in Buffalo because, when I live down in the tri-state area, it's really just the Giants and the Jets. And, those two teams play in New Jersey, but my friends at home still don't consider Buffalo a New York football team until now.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, I think a lot of credit not only goes to Josh Allen and the work that he's put in, but the offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, has done a great job of not only helping Josh Allen grow, but putting him in successful positions on the field. I mean, Josh Allen was an MVP candidate this year, and he's still in that conversation. I mean, he had a tremendous season, and I think they'll only get better. I mean, he showed, if you look at his stats, his year-to-year improvement is through the roof, and I think it'll only get better for Josh Allen and the Bills.
No doubt. They were very lucky to be able to keep Brian Daboll in town, especially for another year, when I thought, personally, he'd be going to that Charger job.
Yeah, he was certainly in the mix, and I think it would have been a great pairing with Justin Herbert. They went in a different direction, but I think the Bills are happy that they not only have Dable, but they still have Leslie Frazier defensively, who was in conversation for some jobs. I think that's so important, and we saw it a lot this year because of COVID. Continuity in an organization. I mean, it makes a huge difference to be able to retain players, coaches, build that foundation, and that's what they've done in Buffalo.
And that culture, especially, I've never really seen a Buffalo Bills group sort of buy in as much as this one does to the city, the people, the culture since that 90s Super Bowl era.
It seems like they embody the spirit of Buffalo, that they have a great connection to the fans, who are, to me, some of the best fans in the NFL. It's fun to watch, and I think you have to have that. I mean, they're tough. They're blue collar. They fit what Buffalo is, and I think that's why there's such a great connection. And, who knows what it would have been like with fans this year. I mean, they could have even won a couple more games. I mean, as great of a year as they had, because those fans really do make a difference.
Absolutely. And now we don't have a ton of time before we touch on the big game, but there's something crazy going on in the NFL right now. It's kind of a QB carousel, most recently with Matt Stafford being swapped for Jared Goff and a lot more. And a Deshaun Watson trade could be looming. What's it going to take for a team such as the Jets or even 49ers, as the NFC West just keeps getting better every year, to acquire Watson after we're seeing with the return that, albeit very talented, but 31-year-old Stafford with upper body injury concerns warranted?
I've seen the reports out of Houston that their new general manager has said that he's, not going to trade Watson. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to play out. This is what I do know. Deshaun Watson is not only a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but he is a guy that you build an organization around. He is the guy who donated his first ever game check to cafeteria workers who lost their homes in Hurricane Harvey. I mean, he is the guy that goes out in the community. He is the face of an organization. So what does that cost to acquire? I mean, 3 first-round draft picks, players that can help you immediately. I don't know. I mean, he is a guy that you build around, and you don't trade guys like that. So if there is a divorce that is not going to be repaired, I don't know what the answer to your question is as to what it will take, but I know it'll take a lot, because here's a guy that you want on your side for a long time.
Absolutely. I was, all about that Clemson craze when they first, him and Dabo first started vaulting that program back into success, and Deshaun Watson just absolutely continued that into the NFL. Finally, we're just 5 days away from what could be the greatest QB matchup in Super Bowl history, at least in my short life's history. Brady Mahomes, 5, and they split the series 2-2 so far. It kind of feels like destiny. What's it going to take for each of these teams and their respective signal callers to come out on top?
Yeah, I love this matchup. I mean, not to say that Bills-Packers wouldn't have been good as well, but absolutely. I think, from a quarterback perspective, this is fascinating. Tampa Bay at home, which has never happened before in a Super Bowl. Brady, who somehow is getting, better with age. It's amazing. To me, watching that AFC Championship game, if the Chiefs offense plays like that, I don't know who can stop them. And that's taking nothing away from the Buccaneers defense, who I think will have a great game plan. And they have guys that can get, after the quarterback, and they'll be tough. I mean, it's going to be a good game, I think. But when the Chiefs are rolling like that, you show me what defense can slow them down. I don't see it. I mean, look, you got to catch them on an off day. You've got to get the turnovers. You got to score when you're on offense. You have to score touchdowns in the red zone. You can't settle for field goals. That's something that really hurt the Bills last week. So I think it's going to be a tough challenge to slow down Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, but I think it'll be a very, very competitive, very entertaining Super Bowl.
And you say very competitive, very entertaining. If you had to give a score prediction and, who's going to be Super Bowl 55 champ, what's it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, just for the reasons I just said, I would take Kansas City, but wouldn't be shocked if Tampa Bay figured out a way to win. They're a very worthy, championship team. But if you're asking me for a pick, I'll take the Chiefs. I could see it being high scoring. I mean, I could see it, a game in the upper 20s, 30s. So we'll see how it plays out, but I'm excited to watch on CBS.
All right, I'll be taking Kansas City and the over parlayed. Thank you, Andrew. So one more thing I wanted to get in before we get out of here. Something we're gonna ask our guests every interview for the rest of the week is what color is Gatorade gonna be? That's something me and my friends love throwing a little money on for the end of the game. Orange, red, yellow, lime, or green. Clear/water, blue or purple. What do you got?
So the Gatorade in my house is clear. So I'm going to go with clear because that's what I have. So I feel it would be, that's my guess.
Well, the Super Bowl is on CBS, so maybe they'll be taking a page out of Andrew Catalon's book there for the Gatorade. There you have it. Clear is 1-0 in our to kick off our remote radio row. Andrew, it was a blast having you on the show. To those listening, you can catch Andrew Catalon nearly every Sunday during the NFL season on the PGA Tour, as well as the rest of college basketball season on CBS. Best of luck with the rest of the week, and I hope to have you on in the future.
Tyler, good luck to you, and thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. It was great having you. See you.
Welcome back into 88.3 The Buzz. Listen to a special edition of the Directors Club with Nick Rohloff and Tyler Smith. I hope you enjoyed that Andrew Catalon interview with Tyler. That was great. He gave us great insight on his day-to-day, what he loves to do. And, man, isn't that awesome doing the Masters, NFL football, and March Madness?
Like I said in the interview, I mean, I couldn't think of 3 better events as a broadcaster. You know, I've always had that dream of becoming a sports broadcaster one day. Not sure if that's the path I'll go on now, but I'm obviously getting into it. Those 3 events, I mean, you can't argue with the prestige and the excitement that those 3 bring. So it was great interviewing Andrew, and I hope me and you both can get him on in the future and be connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we wrap up today's special short episode, we'll let you know that we will be back same time, 2:00 Friday. We should have former Seahawks linebacker, right?
Yeah, middle linebacker.
Lofa Tatupo. I hope I said that right. And Raptors play-by-play Jack Armstrong on Friday's episode. And obviously, like you said yesterday and earlier today, that we will finally giving our final predictions and breaking down what we think will go down in the big game on Sunday. So thanks for tuning in today. Be sure on the lookout. People that watched, thank you again. We'll be here at 2:00 on Friday, same time, same place. Thanks for listening on Directors Club 88.3 The Buzz.